Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Gesell, Mr. Thieme. Maybe you stay with me because there are quite a few questions for you. And Ms. Portele-Anyangbe, please also join us on stage, and we will have another guest. We have heard two great examples of accessibility already, but we will look into something else. A relatively big group of disabilities is often not included, also because these are invisible disabilities. That is people who are hearing impaired, and they have different requirements than deaf people. And the president of the Association of Hard of Hearing, Dr. Matthias Müller, is an expert on this. Please join us on stage. And this movement, the movement of hearing impaired people, is celebrating its 125 years of engagement, commitment for people who are hearing impaired. And a huge applause for this, please. Let us rearrange the stage in the meantime.
Yes, Mr. Müller, let me start with you. Your hearing impairment emerged fairly late. The first hearing loss, you had almost turned 40 years old. An ever-increasing group of people will be affected by hearing impairment, hearing losses. What is the difference between hearing impairment and hearing loss? Do these people have different demands? As you pointed out correctly, you need to differentiate with a hearing impairment. Well, this is deafness or loss of hearing. You are gehörlos. You have a hearing loss. If you lost your hearing before you learned how to speak, before language acquisition, so this means that you find your orientation in the vowel technology, Lautsprache, so loud language. And then we have heard this sign language. This has been illustrated brilliantly with its own grammar, with an own culture, while those who have hearing impairments, they know what the natural language is like. But given that this is an invisible impairment, you do not see, you cannot tell this person is hard of hearing, or so it was a stigma. In the past, many people stashed away their hearing device. Today, it's no longer an embarrassment. Almost everybody has something in their ears, be it an iPod or anything like it. So the stigmatization has gone away. And also this labeling, well, this is a deaf person or has no hearing or hard of hearing or as somebody different. But in society, you would say, well, hearing loss or hearing impairment, communicative impairment goes hand in hand with. So we have an optimal option to express this concept. We can present ourselves. We are talking of about almost 16 million people in Germany are affected by hearing impairment. Not only a slight hearing impairment, severe hearing loss is true for 3 to 4 million people. Still, we have not yet reached the full coverage with hearing aids. Many people do not admit openly by showing their hearing device, and so they would then be better fit for company. What we say again, in tourism, these people, hearing impaired people, need a visible offer. You must send the message, okay, we take you into consideration, we care for you, and we cater for your special needs, but it is important to enable them. You talked about this difference between hard of hearing or hearing loss and hearing impairment. You can also train the people and instruct them. It's one of 8 messages that you send to the travel industry. What are, in a nutshell, the 1 or 2 most important demands? Well, what matters for us most. Well, those people who are affected by hearing impairment, whenever they emerge, let me put it like this, when they emerge as customers in the tourism industry, for example, if they are looking for a travel offer or product on their homepage or in the travel office or wherever, if they find full accessibility, that they can take on this information and can process it. For example, somebody is standing at the reception desk, and if somebody wants to book a room, and if they are not able to understand the other person easily or fully, we have a problem. Or if anything changes, we know these problems in Deutsche Bahn, the German trains. If you have so many changes, we have the 2 sense principle, eye and ear. But to take this down and to implement it fully, we need a very clear message. And the staff must be trained to be able to communicate to the need or with the needs of those who are hard of hearing. So you would say, you see, I am myself wearing this hearing aid. I have this loop. I need this inductive loop. I need it for my transfer to my hearing aid. So, but this requires the staff to be trained and that they can know the difference between hard of hearing or hearing loss and hearing impairment. We also need interconnectedness. All those who are active in the tourism industry must be aware, and we have heard it so often. We have so many different types of impairment, yet there must be an interaction of all the stakeholders. Only then will we be able to talk about accessibility. One of your 8 messages, you also demand the full involvement of those affected by hearing impairment. Why is it so important to involve those who are affected from the very start? I think those who are affected by any impairment are always the best messengers or ambassadors for their own group. If I really want to tap into the expertise of people affected, I need to turn to the affected themselves. And these examples have made it sufficiently clear. Only if I work together with the Association of People with Disabilities. On the other hand, only then will the people with impairments see this as their own success, because we are involved in a huge network of the associations of people with disabilities. We try to learn from each other best practices. What can we learn from you? For example, here, you have done something for those hard of hearing. You have also the audio description. You describe the pictures that you showed. And then we would say, okay, let's take us on board too. So we will link up to you. Then we will have reached the full accessibility. The initial statement by Jürgen Diesel pointed in the right direction. What was it with you? You have worked so often with people with disabilities. What have you learned? Things that you did not know before? Well, we have learned so much. First, the nitty-gritty and the details. As I'm not for all time busy for these issues, then most beautiful thing is having this experience. There is a common ground. You do not have to rediscuss the 101 knowledge again and again. For example, tactile objects. What is so exciting? Before my place in the Humboldt Forum. I worked in the German Historical Museum. In one museum, it may be a model, or it may be the functionality of a historic device or an instrument that might be relevant. In the Deutsches Historisches Museum, I was in constant contact with the German Association of the Hard of Hearing. They told us, okay, it's nice to have those offers, but if we do not have those induction loops, it's to no avail. So it's still a challenge. We need to tap into the technical expertise and to get it done on site. Not only the employees, but also the people that use the hearing aids. So there is a lack of expertise how to set this right. What about you? How close has the cooperation been? Technology will follow suit. Well, what I can say, please just a moment. Can we? Would you probably exchange the microphone? This will probably lead to confusion. Continue talking. It's microphone number 10. As far as we have, closer to your mouth, we had a very good contact in the Gehörlosenverband, very close contact. I have learned early on, let's work on a first name basis. We do not say Sie, but the du. So on a first name basis, so we also entered into contact with the board. Some people were deaf from the birth, others lost their hearing, although I thought that I was highly sensitized. Even in my language, I could learn early on certain things that I did not know. We have passed it on. Why should we should no longer talk of deaf and mute, no longer deaf-mute. Well, it's no longer usable. It's a question of generation, or it's a question of proximity. Those who attended our training programs, okay, once we hear this, deaf and mute will be out. It will no longer be used, and we know why, what the reasons are. In the learning app for sign language, well, if you can come up with one or two words or terms that are fit for use. So I received 5 to 6 or 8 pages of terms that are usable. This was then reflected by the Stadtverband. Yes, they told us it's the right way to go about this. Do not expect your staff to implement everything in a correct wording, but just as a welcoming gesture, talking to about communication and access to information. Humboldt Forum from the online room. If somebody wants to shape accessibility in a similar way, what are the major requirements to reach this objective? This is a difficult question. The Humboldt Forum has benefited from the fact that one of the board members in the build-up phase was himself seriously impaired in visual capacities. So this topic received a budget allocated on the board level. Well, to bring it down, to translate it into the wider surface is a task. Well, it was not helpful that it was seen as a project of the board only. As with anything, it's about funding, financial means, yes, of course, but there are also other tasks, a permanent task to anchor this structurally. Do you have in all the temporary and permanent exhibitions tactile models? And what are the criteria to select any exhibit also as a tactile? In all permanent exhibitions, we have, I don't know the exact number, more than 30 tactile models. In each room, at least one tactile model. The selection was utterly difficult because the concept of the exhibition was already set in stone. So if we then add on top of all that a new concept, then so many ideas had to be ventilated. Where would these new ideas be fitting? We had to talk back to the curators. It was not an easy task. The current special exhibition does not have tactile models, but I am excited to see we will have an immersive experience, as it is quite obvious. It's about art from South America on the topic of water. So much will be touchable in original exhibits. It's a great story that it is possible. Looking forward in the hall. Any follow-up questions?
Maybe I can add one thing, because you were talking about tactile models. So sensitive limitations or impairments, visual or audio impairments, they are not just closely connected, but we have experienced that many people with hearing impairment use tactile models for themselves and recognize them. And this is a great example of how certain accessible tools are used also by other people, not necessarily the target groups. You have seen here that we have speech-to-text interpreters, also a great thing, so that the spoken word is basically translated into text, which is easy for many people because people can't really listen that long. So if they find this stressful, they can read what is being said. The ramp is, for instance, not just for wheelchair users, women with strollers or elderly people on walkers, they also use ramps. That said, accessibility is for many more people than just target groups. They are beneficial for many people, not for everybody, I would say, but for many. And raising awareness of this and thus putting these demands on top of different agendas is a task that will be beneficial for many, and that has to be part of our message. Also here at and off the conference, which is part of this big trade fair. Definitely, thank you. One last round. If there are no questions in the audience, I have one for you. We have highlighted many times how a lot of untapped potential there is when it comes to introducing and offering accessibility in tourism. Also, the economic potential has not yet been tapped. What about you? What do you get as a benefit with, or in addition to appreciation of many others? What is the benefit for the Humboldt Forum? What do you get back for your commitment, apart from the social aspect that it is a must anyways? But what do you hear from people, and what about the economic impact? Well, economically speaking, we can't measure this. The permanent exhibition floors were free of charge until October, so no analyses were conducted. It would be actually an exciting issue for the future. Of course, we also get positive feedback, but what is even more important is we get critical feedback of visitors that do find things that don't work for them, or people who don't understand the entire concept, who can't really handle or agree with the information provided. This is what we are working on. But I do think that we have to have this as a claim. We have to embark upon this path to become better, and I hope that we will continue to go down this path. Okay, Königstein Fortress, what about you? What do you get back? What kind of feedback do you get? Well, we have noticed that we have many more wheelchair users on the Fortress ever since we launched the initiative. We had an integration run on the Fortress where wheelchair users could participate. This is what you can see. And also their families, no? Yeah, of course, also their families. It's not just one wheelchair users, it's normally a group or the entire family that come. So it contributes to making sure that disabilities are more visible on the Fortress. Economically speaking, we are a non-profit organization like the Humboldt Forum, so we don't really focus on profits, and it doesn't really have a huge economic impact because the number of visitors is so big that 100 wheelchair users would not really change much in terms of numbers. But if you think economically, and we are limited, that has some economic requirements, it is important hence to understand that you can only spend every euro once. So we have to earmark our funds in a way that we make offerings to as many people as possible. So we do have to think economically. We have tenders. We have to offer tailor-made offerings. We do not just want to develop things that are just there then and that are not used by anybody. The economic thing is more on the other end when it comes to designing and executing. Okay, Mr. Müller, you have the last word. I would like to mention that people who are hearing impaired, like all other people, want to travel. They want to experience things, and they ask themselves, what do I spend my money for? But if they know that there are accessible offerings, if they know that they get tailor-made services and information, if they feel and know and see all these things and effects, then they will opt for it. And then there is this issue of cohesion. You talked about the community of deaf people. So also when it comes to people who are hearing impaired, they also travel together. They like traveling together. And then they also put money out there to travel together. And then there's also appreciation. And then you can say, we tested this, we noticed that or they will say, we tested this, it is accessible, so we can do it again. And this positive propaganda for this within the community itself will have positive effects in the future. And we say we have to make sure that our persons affected and stakeholders can identify with this and will say, we want this, we need this, but we will also partner with you when it comes to the implementation. Thank you, Mr. Müller, Ms. Portele-Anyangbe, Mr. Thieme, Ms. Gesell. A huge applause for you. Thank you so much.